here's a movie that's all about underestimating kids and not taking their shit seriously. And here's a decision that basically is like, yeah, just cut out all of the meat of this story and get to the end faster. On this week's Movie HighLow, we're talking blue ribbons, yogurt shoppies, and musical little creatures that hide among the flowers. Science is God. This is David Nutter's Disturbing Behavior.
All right, welcome back.
Welcome back. How are you doing tonight?
Amazing. How about you?
I'm not sick, but I'm not well. That's the kind of energy we're bringing on this episode of Movie HighLow.
Sound like you've been sitting on a flagpole.
I sure have. Welcome to Movie HighLow, a podcast discussing the best and worst that cinema has to offer. I'm Dom.
This is Dee.
And this week's movie is Disturbing Behavior, directed by David Nutter, released on July 24th, 1998. This is a low episode. Says who? The brain-trusted IMDb currently rated at a 5.7. The consensus at Rotten Tomatoes has it scored at 36%. The experts at Letterboxd give it an overall 2.8 out of 5. This movie made $17.5 million worldwide on a roughly $15 million budget, so it was considered a box office bomb that failed to turn a profit after marketing expenses were accounted for.
I mean, I feel like that isn't really fair. I don't think this movie is as terrible as people make it sound.
Oh, I don't either.
I mean, there's cheesy, campy moments, but I don't think it's a 2.7 out of 5 either, or whatever it was.
No, this is one of my go-to guilty pleasure movies. It's exactly the kind of salty garbage from the late 90s that I unapologetically love because of how of its own moment that it is. I've always referred to this movie as Fisher-Price Clockwork Orange, my first mind control movie.
Or you could say Fisher-Price Twin Peaks, I guess, now that we know about Twin Peaks.
It's undeniably derivative of much better and sharper horror thriller satires. And even though it does have an edge to it, I still kind of feel like it still basically feels like it's like a vulgar and violent episode of Dawson's Creek to some degree.
You only feel that way because of Katie Holmes and stuff, but...
I feel a lot of ways because of Katie Holmes and stuff, but...
I'm saying, that's probably...
It has that WB kind of shine to it, I think. It does kind of feel like it's introducing these ideas to that specific audience of that specific era.
Yeah, James Marsden also looks like he's pushing 30 in this movie.
Oh my God. I think all the teenagers look like they're pushing 30 in this movie. For anyone who hasn't seen the movie, can you please read the synopsis?
After a family tragedy, teenager Steve Clark moves to the seemingly perfect town of Cradle Bay, where the lawns are clean, the adults are suspiciously calm, and the popular kids act less like students and more like honor roll cult members. At first, the blue ribbons just seem like the usual terrifying high school overachievers, polite, athletic, well-dressed, academically successful, and deeply punchable. But Steve's new conspiracy-minded friend Gavin is convinced something much darker is happening beneath all that school spirit perfection. And unfortunately, Gavin is right, because in Cradle Bay, teenager rebellion is not treated like a phase. It's treated like a defect. With help from Rachel, the local outsider with excellent late 90s teen thriller energy, Steve starts to uncover a secret program designed to fix troubled kids by turning them into obedient suburban success stories. Can Steve and Rachel expose Cradle Bay's creepy teen behavior experiment, or will everyone eventually be the ball?
Disturbing Behavior is a guilty pleasure low. It takes a genuinely creepy late 90s idea of adults trying to surgically remove teenage nonconformity and turn it into something that's pretty compromised but very watchable. Because if you think about the villain of this movie, it's Caldecott, but really the villain of the movie is conformity. And I think that so much of what we grew up with, the message of being an individual, not joining the pack, marching to the beat of your own drum.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely speaks to your sensibilities. I feel like what you related to when you were in high school / college, that I could see how it spoke to you.
What are some of the highs that you had written down for this movie?
Nick Stahl is good.
Yeah.
I like him. I like his characters. But I mean, all these movies in the late 90s make teenhood, teendom, whatever, like in some kind of way they're all the same in some weird way. The cliques and the quirky, quippy dialogue and stuff. Like, it's like people don't always necessarily talk the way. And I guess I can see where you're talking about the whole Dawson's Creek thing, because that's kind of what it was like on that show. But he is funny and UV, his friend, and sarcastic, but it's also probably a little bit over embellished and over the top with how actual teenagers would speak. But
let's put it this way. Everything is dramatized in the 90s when it comes to high school movies to really feel like it's a heightened sense of reality of what being a teenager really feels like. Like, I feel like every time I'd ever watched a movie about high school kids at a party, I'm like, I've never been to a party like the one
the red Solo cups.
Yeah, I've never been to a party like the one that happens in Can't Hardly Wait, or the one that happens in 10 Things I Hate About You. It's
right.
like,
but they all look and feel the same way.
Yeah, exactly. It's this stylized version of what it means to be a teenager, which now that we're farther away from it, like maybe feels like it's like you're remembering something that didn't actually happen. It's the same way people talk about Leave It to Beaver in the 50s. It's like it's representing a reality of a time that didn't actually happen. That's not what it really looked like or felt like in the 50s. It's like a remembered version of it. So I think a lot of these 90s movies operate at that level. Definitely let's point this out. Nick Stahl's performance as Gavin, I definitely think is one of the highest, because James Marsden and Katie Holmes and Bruce Greenwood, I think, are all great in this movie, but he does feel like the standout because his character has sort of the most interesting plight as the true outsider who like knows what's going on but can't be listened to or won't be taken seriously by anyone, including his own friends. And he also, to your point, he's got a ton of this stylized dialogue that he handles like a pro in the movie, because in the wrong hands, I think a lot of the overwritten monologues that he delivers could have really come across badly, but he has a good handle on the material, and he makes Gavin kind of feel like this sarcastic wise ass who's more intelligent and capable than he looks or anyone would give him credit for, probably including himself. The scene you're talking about, where he's identifying all the different tribes in the lunchroom, that's another one. I feel like every 90s movie, high school movie, has that exact same
That's
scene.
what I'm saying.
Clueless has it. 10 Things I Hate About You has
that
it.
movie Mean Girls, it's kind of like the same thing too. Oh, these are, yeah, exactly. Clueless. Like those are the slackers, those are the stoners, all the different cliches.
It's a very familiar scene, but I feel like this one is a good version of it. I actually like the version that's in this movie that he does, because I like how he breaks each of the groups down by like the name of their group, their music of choice, their drug of choice.
They're all some kind of freaks though.
Yeah, and then UV is the one that adds a button to each one, and I wrote him down where he's like the motorheads, freaks who fix leaks, the micro geeks, the freaks who go squeak, the skaters, freaks in sneaks, the blue ribbons, freaks so chic.
Yeah.
And then him and Gavin, freaks all week.
Yeah, exactly.
UV is kind of like my low-key favorite character in this movie. And like you said, it's just hilarious that he's an albino kid and his nickname is UV.
That's supposed to be the whole joke.
Which is that's a good joke. Right. You know, credit where it's due.
I do love that in that scene, James Marsden drinking a freaking carton of milk. I'm like, really? Like, you could drink a Dasani and look less childish. Like, really? He's drinking a carton of milk? Come on, man.
He needs that calcium for his growing 26-year-old body.
Exactly. So he can play Cyclops in a couple of years.
The line, too, when Gavin sees Lorna and he like says hello to her and she's like, drop dead. And he goes, contact. He's got a couple of good little quips that I really like.
Welcome to Cradle Bay High, Stevie boy. Welcome to my nightmare.
He's definitely high, but I think the biggest problem with that character, though, is just once he becomes a blue ribbon, the movie doesn't really do much with him at that point. And I feel like it kind of misses a big opportunity to either turn him into the big baddie of the movie or make him like the really tragic figure, since he's the one that saw all of this coming and had no way of being able to prevent it.
Right. Well, they make him come back at the end as a teacher, but it's...
Right. They do that. They basically give him the Michael Jackson Thriller ending. You know, right down to the thing with the eye and the freeze frame. But his ending would have been different in the original cut of the movie, and I want to talk about that when we get to the lows, because some of the problems with his character are dealt with from the material that got ripped out of the movie. But I just think in general, like once he becomes a blue ribbon, there's not really much more for him to do at that point, which is kind of a bummer, because he is the most interesting character of the movie.
Right.
William Sadler as Newberry. Talk to me about your take on William Sadler.
He's really funny. I mean, I don't know, the thought came to me authentically of he's a poor man's Gary Oldman, but it feels like everything he's in, he's kind of like this B, C character, but he is hilarious. He's like a really funny character actor. And you brought up, you know, the thing you remember him as the most is the Reaper.
The Reaper from Bogus Journey.
Yeah. He's goofy, he's silly, but he's fun. You know what I mean?
He's great. He's great.
He's trying to kill all the rats, but it feels like the rats are like...
Metaphor.
Yes, a metaphor for what's happening in the school.
But I like that he's hiding in plain sight, that he's clearly smarter than anyone expects from him, which is kind of the whole way that he's able to essentially fly under the radar and not be of any interest to the people that may be indoctrinating or taking over the people of Cradle Bay.
Right.
Poor man's Gary Oldman's pretty funny, though. Another high for this movie, the soundtrack kicks ass. I mean, and I want to be very...
Oh, yes. Yeah, well...
Let's be clear about this. The soundtrack, the score sucks.
I know, it's goofy. It's cheesy.
Literally...
Dun!
Yeah.
Dun! Like, I mean, it's like doing it at moments it doesn't even earn it.
The first note that I wrote down when we started watching the movie was, why is the score punching me in the face with its weird synthy cheesiness?
I know. That's one of the first those I wrote too. I put the opening music and its effects are rather cheesy. Sounds like it's aping The Exorcist a bit with the piano line too. It's like it sounds like it's trying to do The Exorcist.
Yeah, it did have that when the score wasn't doing that weird.
And it had the weird synth strike at the same time
strike,
too.
Yeah.
But even in the movie when it had them, it didn't always feel like it fit either. It was just kind of like, okay, that's happening.
What I would say is the actual soundtrack that
Yes,
the songs that
source
plays
music.
for me, and this is just revelatory about who I am, is that all of that alternative rock shit is what soundtracked my own adolescence. The Fly's Got You Where I Want You song in particular is and has always been a fucking banger. The music video for it, I feel like, is also its own little beautiful cultural artifact because it was back during the era where music featured in movies could make the music video part of the storytelling. So the whole concept of all the teenagers running off the cliff in the music video like a bunch of lemmings with only Katie Holmes and James Marsden having the good sense not to join the pack is, in my opinion, legendary. What do you think about the location of it being set in the Pacific Northwest?
I said it reminds me of like Twin Peaks. Now that we've watched the whole show, it's like it's hard to not think of that teenagers trying to make sense of their world against the backdrop, the cold, eerie, desolate, but beautiful backdrop of the Pacific Northwest.
I think the cinematography is actually legitimately great too. I think that there's no denying that this movie has some really great images in it. Like there's the opening shot of the cliff overlook. There's the silhouette of all the blue ribbons attacking Dickie on the docks. Any scene that takes place in like the smoking hangout at the high school basement, there's a really concerted effort to make that lighting very moody, very atmospheric. That's a big part of the texture of this movie, is that it's got a lot of atmosphere to it. Why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we'll get into some of the lows of disturbing behavior.
Try not to fall off any cliffs.
Gavin thinks some sinister force is taking over the Cradle meatheads.
You know what it is.
A sinister force?
You know, evil. Nowhere to turn, no one to trust, altogether ooky.
Failed to be a Benny bitch, Rachel.
Failed to be a pepper-ass, Gav.
All right, coming back. This movie runs 84 minutes long. It's a really, really short film. And I think that the first low for me is that studio interference cut a lot of the storytelling out of this movie. Without knowing anything about its production or its post-production, you can almost just innately kind of tell that this was something that was fucked with pretty heavily by the studio. Like it kind of feels like things have been stitched together in a way where you don't have full clarity on things that are happening. The DVD comes with deleted scenes, and there are at least 3 big elements that probably should have been maintained in the theatrical cut. The first thing is there's a lot more backstory surrounding Steve's brother.
I know that does feel like you're kind of waiting to find out more, and you don't really find out much more than what he obviously shot himself or something.
Right.
And like you don't know much more than that.
There's a lot more about.
And the movie makes you feel like they're going to delve into it more, and they don't.
They don't. They just use a couple of like really strange kind of videotape flashbacks of Ethan Embry, who's supposed to play his brother. They have a couple of like cryptic lines that are put in there. In the deleted scenes, you would have found out a lot more about what led to his suicide. The fuller context would have actually given a lot more weight to some of the other scenes in the movie. And one in particular is when Gavin shows Steve the gun early in the movie, and then Steve immediately like fights with him and takes it away from him. You'd have a better understanding as to why that moment is so important to Steve, because you would know more about the events that led to his brother shooting himself. The context around Cradle Bay and Caldecott's Blue Ribbon program. So this is another thing. In another one of the deleted scenes, Newberry, the William Sadler character, tells Steve about the teenagers in the town of Cradle Bay had been getting out of control for years. And there was an event that happened where there was a car full of drunk teenagers that crashed into a mother and her 8-year-old son, and it killed all of them. And this kind of proves to be the catalyst that breaks the town and would allow someone like Caldecott to come in and provide his solution to them. This feels like it's an important thing that was omitted because it reveals the sociology behind the conspiracy.
Now that you're thinking about it, it almost feels like maybe Steve's parents were in on that, like in some way, like, oh, because we know what our family went through with our older son committing suicide and all this, we want to send our younger teenage children to a school that might keep them in line a little bit better.
But this is exactly
like an adult conspiracy versus
right. But this is exactly my point. This is exactly what's missing from the movie. The parents almost seem less like co-conspirators and more like passive participants who aren't maybe even fully aware of what the actual implications of becoming a blue ribbon is. And it gives them like a sense of plausible deniability. So what you're saying about Steve's parents, like there's the scene in the movie where Steve finds out that he's been enrolled in the program. It almost doesn't seem like his parents realize that that means an operation where they're going to fuse some kind of mind-controlling contact lens to his eyeball.
Right, and I'm sure a level of that was probably hidden from them. They just know that there's some genius or mastery behind how Caldecott operates and runs a school that, if he gets in with this good crowd of these blue ribbon kids, not thinking about implants or understanding any of that, but then he'll be in a good spot too. They probably know on that level.
But this is what I'm saying. I think the movie is kind of missing is that like there's the scene when Steve and Gavin are like they're up in the rafters and they're watching.
It's like a PTA meeting or whatever.
Our kids are starting to be kind of unkind to the kids who aren't in the blue ribbon program, and he's trying to like throw cold water on that and say like, well, once they're feeling something new, like being exceptional, they start to feel like eagles soaring above the pigeons, which makes it the birds below them look a little more pedestrian, and that will pass, and don't worry about that so much. But then there's the scene where they're essentially nominating a new candidate for the program, and they're describing all of the problems that he has, and what they don't realize is that it's Gavin. And then there's this whole vote where it's like, okay, do we vote that he be brought into the program? And all the parents raise their hands. There would be something so much more sinister about that scene if you felt like the parents were all co-conspirators, like they all had had an understanding of what was actually being done to the kids.
Right.
Whereas this movie leaves the opportunity for plausible deniability. I think if these other elements had been brought back into the movie, it would start to feel more like what you're saying. Maybe Steve's parents moved him to this community because they knew what it was going to do to him.
I know, and it really begs the question, why would they delete some of this stuff? I mean, especially if the runtime in the end is only 84 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. So the last piece of it is the original ending, which would have had a standoff between Steve, Rachel, UV, and Gavin, where they would have ended up killing Gavin in self-defense as he's realizing that he's the last blue ribbon alive and that there's no going back for him, that he's essentially, he's stuck being what he is now. I think that would have been an improvement on the current ending. It's just too bad that the studio did the typical studio thing, which is let's cut out all of the additional character development and the plot revelations and the reversals and just make it get to the end faster. Here's a movie that's all about underestimating kids and not taking their shit seriously. And here's a decision that basically is like, yeah, just cut out all of the meat of this story and get to the end faster.
I mean, I don't disagree that it would have been more interesting and probably made a lot more sense and would have made other scenes make more sense if they kept some of those scenes in.
This is another thing I thought was kind of weird when I was watching it this time. I think the movie seems confused by the effects of the implant. Because I've seen this movie dozens of times, and this is still something that I'm a little confused by. The implant essentially turns all of these high schoolers into Stepford kids, right? They usually seem fully content to sit around drinking fraps and holding bake sales and doing their algebra homework. The defect is what turns them violent, and it's supposedly based on their hormones. As Caldecott very eloquently puts it, every time one of these kids gets a hard-on, they go out and beat someone with it, which is just top-notch screenwriting. Mm-hmm. That doesn't fully track with the rest of the movie because even when these kids aren't aroused, they're not completely docile, obedient, exemplary teenagers.
No.
The scene where they initiate Dickie looks like a fucking gang attack.
It definitely has a cult feel to it.
The other scene when they beat the shit out of Steve in the cafeteria, like that literally looks like a prison beating where like they're locking the doors, they're clearing out the entire caf. And there's all those other scenes too where like they're chasing him home and taunting him. So it's not that they're just violent when the implant malfunctions. They kind of oscillate between this like, gee whiz, aw shucks. Oh, you have friends in Chicago? Let's hang out at the yogurt shop. They oscillate from that vibe all the way to like being pretty hostile and terrifying without the defect really playing into the equation.
Right.
So I think the question for me is, are these Stepford wives or are they more Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like a malevolent group that has a presence that's trying to self-protect and expand its reach?
I think the latter.
But that's the thing. I don't think the movie ever really determines what version of this it is. And I don't really know, and I don't think the movie really knows.
And again, that's probably because of all the scenes it chose to delete.
Right. And again, that's just the scenes that I know that were deleted, that were on the DVD. Like, according to the director, there's even more content that, was in another work print that just never got seen by anybody. Some of the dialogue in this movie is laughably bad. Self-mutilate this fluid boy. That is an actual line of dialogue said within the first 2 minutes of this movie.
Right.
That's pretty bad.
It's cheesy.
I think Katie Holmes has the lion's share of the bad dialogue in particular. Failed to be a tumor, Gavin. That was one of the lines.
I mean, the toxic jock syndrome thing, I thought was funny, but
she's who put the acid in my spam. The fact that anytime she likes something, she says razor is like low in its own
I know,
right.
it's like that didn't catch on.
That's
Like you're trying to invent like,
the invented dialogue. That's
like
the thing.
as if or whatever from
Right.
Clueless. Like you're trying to do that, but it's not working out too well.
They're trying to do that in that invented kind of teenage dialogue. Clueless is a perfect example of it. I think Heathers, the dialogue that Daniel Waters writes in Heathers with, how very and f me gently with a chainsaw. Like this movie, outside of Nick Stahl, who I think handles a lot of that dialogue pretty well, I think everybody else that has to do it, unfortunately for them, like it doesn't quite fly. The third act of this movie is just batshit crazy. Once they head to the asylum, the movie really starts to get bananas.
It felt very like every single person inside that institution was over the top.
Oh yeah, it's complete. It's basically
Meet the happy little critters that are. It's like, oh,
hiding
and
in
that's
the flowers.
That's Caldecott's daughter. Of course it is. It's just like it's kind of stupid. But
It's the whole thing has this island of misfit toys kind of feel to it, where it's like these are supposed to be all the former failed patients of Caldecott, like you said, including his own daughter, and it's completely laughably over the top. I can't fully hate it, but any sense of nuance that this movie was trying for, like it is totally dropped by this point. The minute we get there, it is crazy. And the other part of it is I think that whole sequence is very X-Files coded. Like it does kind of feel like Mulder and Scully, only like 1,000 times goofier. The entire operating scene feels directly ripped from Jacob's Ladder. Like once they're wheeling James Marsden into that operating room, like the whole thing just kind of feels like it's that Jacob's Ladder sequence.
Clockwork Orange, like you said.
Yeah, well, once he's like the actual implantation and like they're playing all the shit in front of his eyeballs, I mean, that's totally Clockwork Orange. But if this is supposed to be a legitimate medical procedure, does the place have to be so grungy? Like looking at how these operations are performed, it's kind of shocking that multiple kids haven't already died from a fucking infection already. Like
it seems so seedy. And
it doesn't seem like a clean, sterile place to have a operation done.
No.
You said it as a high. The whole "hey teacher, leave those kids alone" I think is so fucking lame.
But I think at this point in the movie, I feel like so much is lame and cheesy and over the top that like you're just along for the ride, literally. That ride off the cliff, you're along for the ride off the cliff at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
and that part feels like The Crow. This is the really real world. There ain't no coming back. It feels like that.
It does. He screams the line and then it literally cuts back and it's like this like kind of slow-mo shot of his face as like he has this like look of glee that he's taking them all out.
I know.
It's really what. Bruce Greenwood's literally like, "Science is God." That shit's hilarious. And James Marsden's "be the ball" when he kicks him in the face and knocks him off the cliff. By the end, the thing is really spiraling towards just full-on comedy.
Yeah.
This is the last thing I got. Main villain falls to his death trope. I know that it's existed before Die Hard, but it feels like Die Hard made it iconic. And then for like another 10 to 15 years, it's like every third movie you watch had to kill its villain by dropping them off a building or out of a tower or off of a cliff. I understand that a fall gives you spectacle. It's like an unmistakable defeat while allowing the hero essentially to avoid having to just simply execute the villain. It gives them a little bit of absolution. But I just stopped to think about how many movies of, that era from like the late 80s through the 90s, maybe even into the early 2000s, do this thing at the end of the movie with the villain.
No, I
mean, Joker and Batman, fucking Big Boy and
I've
Dick
almost
Tracy.
come to expect it from a lot of movies now, but yeah.
And it's like, it was awesome when they did it to Hans Gruber. I didn't need it for another 15 years.
Be the ball.
All right, so disturbing behavior. It's the exact kind of low that we like having around. It's not great. It's not
bottom of a cliff low.
It's not bottom of a cliff low. It's not fully successful. It's got a better premise than its execution, and it's got better atmosphere than its storytelling. There's probably a sharper satirical idea that the movie could have known how to handle, but it's totally a watchable movie. It's got a real concept. It's got real late 90s thriller juice. It's got creepy adults. It's got brainwashed, preppy fucking kids. It's got William Sadler doing beautiful weirdo business. It's not secretly a masterpiece, but it's not disposable either. It belongs to a very specific shelf of movies that are flawed and compromised and probably a little bit overcooked and underwritten, but somehow still very alive and still very fun.
Also, you know what else I'm thinking of that's a low? The name of the movie.
Yeah.
Disturbing behavior. Like, it feels like there could have been a better name for this movie.
You know what I'd retitle it to?
What?
Fisher-Price Clockwork Orange.
There you go.
So.
My first horror movie, my first thriller.
My first mind control movie. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Movie HighLow. If you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a rating, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. Check out the show on YouTube, leave us a comment, check us out on Instagram. Thank you to everybody who has been interacting with the reels that we've been posting. We've been getting a lot of really interesting comments, and it's been really, really cool. The more that you guys are able to chat with us, keep the discussion going, it does help us to continue to find our people. So thank you for everyone who has engaged, and we hope you enjoy the podcast, the YouTube show, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yeah, and don't follow the crowd.
Don't follow the crowd.
I know I'm not supposed to be doing this. It's bad. Wrong. Wrong. Bad.
Oh, it's not bad.
Jesus Christ. I have to go home. I have a big physics test tomorrow.
The yogurt shop. Shoppy. F*** is a shoppy.